This is Call on the Field Stands, where Ryan Denchef and myself, Jeff Mapis, attempt to avoid the nonsensical takes heard around the nation from national sports media. It's an exciting time of the year for sports. NBA season approaches with preseason getting underway, MLB divisional round wrapping up. Braves are getting absolutely stomped right now as we record this. And football, where my two favorite teams stink it up on the field week to week, progresses onward. Ryan, let's start with MLB. What the fuck just happened to the Braves, dude?
Bro, the Braves.
My God.
Coming home and get that ass stomped. Hard to see that really coming. I mean, I did think the Cardinals were probably going to win. I think they were even favored minus 130. But to get, they give it like 8 runs in the first inning or some crazy fucking shit.
It might have even gotten a 10 in the first. I wasn't following along.
Yeah.
But.
It's just wild to see a team crumble so massively.
Well, not just this year, but they went through a stretch where, like, Bobby Cox was the manager. You know, mid-90s, they got their World Series win over the Indians, but they made, I think, like 4 total World Series and had a stretch of 15 straight years where they won the division.
Right.
And they only have 1 World Series to show for it. So it's like the Braves have a rich history of making it to the playoffs and choking with a lot of good talent on their team.
I mean, the only thing, though, for Braves fans, I mean, they have a lot of youth. And they got some studs, and I think they're going to be, sticking around for the long haul and for years to come. But, that's an embarrassing throttling there.
Yeah, it's
in front of your home fans, Game 5, trying to head to the, championship series, and you get fucking embarrassed. It's pretty awesome.
You feel bad for the fans that paid for their ticket. Big Game 5, home, getting amped up, and then the Cardinals just lay the fucking hammer in the first inning. Like, has to be demoralizing.
Yeah, well,
so
we saw some of similar action in our recent history as Indians fans in the playoffs. But
that's correct.
Speaking of the Yankees, subtly they handled their business against the Twins. But I mean, the other 2 series, a lot of people, the Dodgers probably the best team. Them and the Astros argue, the 2 best teams along with the Yankees, best teams in baseball. 3 series going to the 5th game in the opening set. And it's interesting because we talked about, is the popularity of the game, dwindling a little bit, or, why are we less interested? Is it just our kind of perception? We talked about the marketing of baseball and if that's, needs to be bolstered and all that. But, I think you were pulling up some stats before we got fired off. I was interested to hear what you had to say about what you found so far as the ratings for this early on MLB playoffs.
What's crazy this year is the Twins-Yankees series is the only one that, they swept, obviously, but the rest are all got tied 2-2. Pretty remarkable. I wonder if that's ever happened. Be interesting to see. But so the playoffs opened. The divisional round opened on Thursday of last week on the 3rd. And obviously you have Thursday night football to compete with, which we also hit on last week. The scheduling of when the playoffs fell kind of hurts the MLB in a way, I guess, in our opinion, because you got football starting up and whatnot. So now their divisional round opens up on Thursday night when you have Thursday night football. And it was a good game.
Which was what?
The Rams versus the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Those are both
2
really
of the better
good teams
in the league. Yeah.
Both have stars on their team,
So what the numbers say?
So the Cardinals Braves was the first game, and they got a 2.2 rating, 3.51 viewers on TBS, and it was the most watched NLDS opener in 3 years since the Giants and Cubs on FS1 in 2016. And this is per sportsmediawatch.com.
Huh.
So,
wow. Interesting. I'm trying to think of why that. Maybe we're just underestimating the popularity of the game right now, I guess. I don't know.
Well, last year, so the later game that night was the Nationals versus Dodgers, and the ratings for that game was up 54% compared to last year when it was on MLB Network. So,
well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that the network is part of it. And the first game you mentioned being the Braves game, which, one of the instances of team that is on TV nationally all the time, being on, Turner's Sports Network, TBS, even when we were growing up, always on TV nationally. So I'm sure, before there was even more publicity of games and access to watching games, a lot of people just started watching the Braves because that's what was on. Maybe their fandom has built up, and kind of like you mentioned, just the long story success over the last 2 decades of the Braves just, dominating their division and going to the playoffs year after year. Maybe it's a fan base situation. I wonder how widespread those statistics are. I don't know if that article you have up has that kind of breakdown, but it is interesting. Like I said, maybe we're just underestimating the MLB pool, But,
could be true. So later tonight, we got the Nationals Dodgers. We'll wrap up that series. I think we both picked the Dodgers to come out of the NL, and
yeah, I'm not going to change my pick at this moment.
Not either.
When I'm editing this tonight, I'm seeing the Nationals slap the Dodgers around. I'll edit it and pretend like I've picked them to win. Just kidding. No, but
sneak it in there.
But yeah, dude, Astros Rays tomorrow. No, I might if I had to go on a limb, and I might see the Astros going down.
Going down, huh?
I mean, it's easy to say because it's kind of a wild prediction. You see these guys take these hot takes of picking teams that really shouldn't win, and then if they actually come out and win, it's a miracle and you look like the smartest guy. But if they lose, no one really gives a shit because you were just kind of going out and being a wild picker. But I don't know, for whatever reason, I think the Rays might do some damage, even though their pitching matchup is, I think, Glasnow versus Cole, which, I mean, if I was a gambling man, it's kind of easy where you'd put your money. But yeah, it's pretty interesting, though, to see what's going to happen and see kind of where the ratings, we'll have to keep an eye on that for coming weeks to see if they continue to, be as popular games-wise. And, I mean, if it's Astros, Yankees, and if it's Cardinals and Dodgers, I mean, either one. But particularly Cardinals, Dodgers, Yankees, Astros, that's going to get some serious ratings for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So
huge fan bases for those
Right.
teams.
Yeah.
So, but overall, I have watched maybe like 15 to 20 minutes of playoff baseball.
Yeah, I haven't really watched too much more, I don't think.
Shockingly enough, I watched, I think it was game 1 of the Braves Cardinals, and the Braves were up late in that game. And when I tuned into it, the Braves made a switch to their bullpen.
Oh, yeah.
Like the first,
got wrecked.
the first batter crushed a home run. I was like, oh, so the bullpen is going to kill the Braves after all this year.
Yeah, well, they didn't even get a chance to fuck up today.
So, yeah, they got housed. That sucks. But yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll know the championship series by the next time we record, and see what those matchups look like. In the meantime, football continues to ramp up like it does every year around this time. So switch it over to some college football. Talk about a few big games that happened last week and pretty big week 7 coming up.
Yes.
So we'll start with a primetime game. Ohio State taking care of business versus Michigan State. Early on, Michigan State they didn't look out of place to me. I mean, they left some plays on the field for sure, but overall, like, Ohio State can struggle offensively, for example, to start. They got some fucking home run hitters that it only takes one play, one crease, like for J.K. Dobbins, to get a house call and start breaking the game wide open. Once they get the lead, their defensive line is insane. Best player in the country with Chase Young can just get after the QB. It makes it difficult to take down Ohio State, especially at home. So,
yeah, I mean, we continue to talk, each week about the different games and everything like that. And I mean, it's really hard to really say anything new from what we've been saying about Ohio State and a lot of these teams, really. But being that it's a national game against a good opponent in Michigan State, I don't really think too many people thought that Ohio State was really in danger. But I mean, it's really hard to. We can go through and keep repeating the same things about Ohio State having Just a bunch of studs everywhere across the ball, kind of like you mentioned, a few of them. And the interesting thing, I wouldn't say I was worried, but it was, interesting, I guess, is probably the best word. Just watching early in that game, like we said, we were watching it together at the bar. The first quarter, Ohio State looked like trash. I can't remember the stat. I was trying to pull it up real quick while we're talking right now, but I can't find it. Of the yards they had in the first quarter and then the yards they had in the second quarter, they just took the game over in the second quarter and then came out of halftime, kind of handled their business and showed the country that Ohio State is the truth. And good luck beating them this year. It's going to be interesting when they play Wisconsin, but Ohio State, in my opinion, is up there in the conversation for the best team in the country right now with Alabama. I think they're 1-2 at this moment. And, it's kind of hard for me to really put anybody else in that category, even though you have like Clemson and Georgia and all them. But the eyeball test to me and, a lot of people I'm sure is it Alabama or Ohio State is the best team in the country right now? And everybody else is a little bit notch below.
Yeah, I would agree with that. They're my top two teams in the country, probably followed by like Georgia and LSU. Take your pick on order, really. Oklahoma, yeah. Clemson. Then you get into Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Notre Dame after Wisconsin for me.
Yeah, well, you can't really overlook Florida. I don't know if you mentioned them.
Nope. Florida.
Certainly a team to be contending. They just beat Auburn. We'll get into that and kind of the matchup they have coming up against LSU. So that's really going to be showing for, really what's what with Florida. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on Florida? You got any respect for Florida?
No, I do have respect for Florida. Dan Mullen, kind of has it going on. I believe they were a 10-win team last year. They smacked Michigan in a New Year's Six bowl game, and this year they're 5-0, undefeated. Took down Auburn last week, big win. So anytime a team loses their starting quarterback to injury, though, you just wonder how long it's before it implodes on them and backfires.
You're talking about Florida?
Yeah.
Hey, this trash dude balling out last week.
I'm not saying he's bad.
Then he gets injured. They bring in that Jones dude.
And Maury Jones.
Starts balling out too. Their receivers are the truth, bro. Their receivers are the truth. Florida, I don't know. That was really the first in-depth because I did watch that Auburn game, about 90% of it. And that was like the first real look that I got. Who they play first game of the year?
Florida.
Was that the Miami
game? That
game?
was the Miami game.
Yeah, Miami just had no shot. And I watched a little bit of that. But this was like the first time I really saw what they were about. Dude, Florida's no joke. Florida's no joke.
No, they're definitely not. I think they're at least another they're 6-0 now. They're at least another 10-win team. They got to play LSU on the road, prime time next weekend, and then they host Georgia. So those are their potential 2 losses. Other than that, they play South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Missouri, and close with Florida State like they do every year.
Right.
Those are all wins. So, yeah, I don't know. That matchup will be really fun because LSU looks pretty freaking good, man.
Yes, they do.
Pro Football Focus released, they rank every starting quarterback in college football. And guess who they listed number 1, bro?
Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow.
Get the fuck out
is
of here.
listed number 1
Get
right
the
now
fuck
by
outta
Pro
here,
Football
bro.
Focus.
The fuck? What's the rest of that list?
So you got Burrow at 1,
Tua.
Jalen Hurts 2,
okay.
Tua 3, Fields 4, your boy Sam Ellinger at number 5.
I like him.
Then Jake Fromm at number 6.
So is that based on like what they've done so far through the year, or is that
it's
variable through
Pro
talent,
Football Focus has their
like
own.
Who they're playing?
They come up with their own unique stat system that they track, like big throw. I don't even know what goes into it.
Yeah.
But they kind of touch on like their yards per attempt and their success rate with throwing downfield. They're all about big plays. You want your quarterback to be able to generate big plays.
Do they take into account like playing shitty teams or?
They might in some sort of factor.
All sorts of elaborate situations. It's interesting, I guess. It's hard to really truly argue with that list. It's still super early in the season, and things will kind of shape out how they're going to shape out. here coming soon. But it's hard to gauge really what quarterbacks are doing when they're playing Georgia Southern. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't know. Getting in more in depth of conference play and kind of see when the shit hits the fan, who steps up and starts balling out and continues to do so like they did against these other shittier opponents. But man, one question: what is it gonna be if it all shapes out a certain way to keep so many teams from the SEC out of the college? Like, how many college football playoff teams will be from the SEC, do you think?
This year?
Yeah. Trying to project ahead, like, okay, if these teams win, if these teams lose, these teams obviously play each other, so one of them's going to lose, et cetera, conference championship, et cetera. How many teams do you think, could you realistically see a scenario where you have 3 SEC teams out of the 4?
They're not going to do that. I think you'd see, first and foremost, if they found a way to put 3 SEC teams in, I think the ratings would go down for that
They'd
playoff.
have to. Well, I mean, who knows? Everybody would probably watch it.
They might. You would get a lot of fan outrage. There's no doubt about it.
Definitely would.
The other thing is, it would have to fall perfectly. Like, Ohio State would have to collapse and lose 2 games. Oklahoma would have to find a way to lose 2 games. Like, a 1-loss Ohio State that wins the Big Ten.
What if it's a 1-loss Ohio State that doesn't win the Big Ten?
It's hard to picture it because I don't see that. Like, Ohio State is winning the Big Ten, I guess, in my brain.
Yeah, probably.
I have it penciled in, I guess, but
there's certainly scenarios that could happen.
Like if LSU loses to Alabama and it's a tight game and that's their only loss, but Alabama goes undefeated, they're obviously winning the West and going to the SEC title game. So now you've got LSU, who, with the scenario I played out, would have beaten Texas and beaten Florida. So pretty good wins, and then went toe-to-toe with Alabama. Then
misses out on an opportunity to go to the SEC championship.
So I don't know. And then same thing with Georgia. What if they go undefeated and then they beat Alabama or they lose to Alabama? You know what I mean?
Yeah, what if it's an undefeated Alabama versus undefeated Georgia, and you have a 1-loss LSU whose only loss is to Alabama? How are you going to leave all 3 of them homies out? I don't know. LSU would just have to be fucked, I guess. I don't know. Like, that's a realistic a realistic chance that happens.
Right.
Alabama, Georgia, and both undefeated in the conference championship.
Because LSU doesn't play Georgia this year.
Neither does Alabama.
So, and they'll have other big wins in this scenario we're talking about. Auburn is still a ranked team, and
means they beat Florida this weekend.
And Florida, Texas A&M is 24th now. They might not be ranked by the time they play them at the end of the year, but
so yeah, beating Texas, beating Florida, beating Auburn,
tight game against Bama.
That's 3 big wins plus a tight game as their only loss versus Alabama.
It'll be interesting. But this kind of scenario.
But they'd have one less. Let's say a 1-loss Ohio State team. They'd have one less win than an Ohio State or, a Wisconsin that wins the Big Ten. If for some weird reason a 2-loss team wins the Big Ten, then all fucking hell's gonna break loose.
Yeah, for sure. This could be the year that really pushes the envelope to expand the playoffs, whether it's at going to 6 or 8. Because if this scenario plays out and you have like a 1-loss Ohio State champion, say Oklahoma loses to Texas this weekend, but then they win out and beat Texas again in the championship game because it's the best 2 teams play each other in the Big 12. I don't think they have divisions. So you could see where Oklahoma, 1-loss champion, Ohio State, 1-loss champion. Then you got Alabama, 1-loss, non-champion, Georgia, undefeated champion. They're obviously in. And LSU hanging out there, 11-1.
Let's say Ohio State beats Wisconsin in a couple weeks and they lose to Wisconsin. Same kind of situation.
What's Wisconsin's record?
They both have one. They end up
both have 1 loss.
Ohio State would be fucked because Wisconsin would have the Big Ten championship victory over them, still with 1 loss. But do you leave that 1-loss champion Wisconsin out, or the LSU team that only lost to Alabama, who let's theoretically assume they're undefeated? Their only loss is to the number 1 team in the country.
Right.
Man, it's gonna be.
It'll be chaos.
We always have. I feel like these conversations always arise, and what happens if this? And I mean, teams fucking lose.
Teams lose.
It would have to usually align so perfectly for these conversations
right.
to ever come.
It usually sorts itself out. I mean, has the committee like truly drastically fucked up in their decision? Like putting Ohio State in the first one, fourth, was kind of controversial.
Yeah,
Guess what? They won it all. So is that decision really?
Right. Alabama.
Incorrect? I mean,
I think the one year was Alabama or Ohio State. Who's going to go? They ended up Alabama, in my mind, gets snubbed. Auburn, or I think that was the same kind of situation. Alabama gets in with one loss over a Big Ten champion Ohio State with one loss.
Yeah, there was something like that.
And Alabama jumped Ohio State, even though Ohio State had the Big Ten, something like that. But it was the same kind of situation. Alabama squeaks in. What happens? They run the table, win it all. So it's interesting and weird how things kind of shape up. I don't know. It's going to be, like you said, things usually just kind of work themselves out. Like I said, the committee does fuck up occasionally, but it would take, I mean, let's say, I think the only thing that would be good about three teams in the SEC would be three teams in the SEC go to the college football playoff. I see it hard for the committee or NCAA in general to not expand the college football playoff to more teams than 4.
You would think they'd have to.
They'd have to. Like you said, the outcry of the fans, even if it was like rightfully so, like let's say, Ohio State wins all their games and then there's the 3-loss SEC teams and Clemson has a loss or something. They're going to have to put 3 SEC teams in more than likely. So let's say it's like obvious that those 3 should get in. There's still going to be enough outcry that they're probably going to have to do something about the current system.
I think so. But the thing I'll say about expanding the playoffs, are you a fan of the automatic bid? If you win your conference, you're in, or should it be the best 8 teams?
So we're going to 8?
So yeah, just throw it out there that it's 8.
So the top 5. So you're saying the question is, should the Power 5 conference champs automatically go to the playoffs?
Correct.
Fuck no.
Thank you.
No, I mean, the way we have the conferences set up, you can have a 3-loss Northwestern team beat, whoever from the other side of the Big Ten, Ohio State or whatever, and they get in because they beat Ohio State. Like, fuck that. That's stupid.
And then they're going to go to the playoffs and get absolutely destroyed.
Bent over by Alabama.
Because anything, I mean, Ohio State has been upset by
sure.
worse teams recently under Urban. So it's like, you get that one game
right.
where the ball bounces your way correctly a few times and you squeak out a win. Now all of a sudden you're in the playoffs getting shellacked by Alabama.
Just the other last year, maybe Ohio State. It was, I think, Ohio State, Northwestern, or in the Big Ten championship. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Northwestern had no business in that game. Ohio State fucked them up a little bit. It was kind of a little bit close, but let's say Northwestern finds a way to win that game. They're going to the college football playoff?
Screw that. I don't want to watch that shit.
No, nobody wants to watch that.
Even when Michigan State won the Big Ten and went to the playoffs, ranked number 4, like they got absolutely destroyed by Bama. Same thing with Washington. Like, I'm not saying they weren't deserving of going to the playoffs. 1 loss, conference champion. I get it, but at the same time, my point is, I want the best teams in there.
Yeah. And
there is a fact, like there should be a deserving factor. Like if a team like Clemson this year, we think is totally talented. I mean, look at the players they have on offense. If they end up dropping 2 games in the ACC, you could still say, well, they still have a bunch of talented players, but 2 teams, 2 losses in the ACC, get the fuck out of here.
No fucking shot. No shot. Yeah, let's say they lose 1 game, then lose the conference championship. They're out. They're fucked.
Yeah.
They lose 1 game, they're probably fucked. A 1-loss Clemson
this year
is not
for sure
getting
with
in.
4.
Yeah.
But
But I mean, to go off that point, like I think part of the argument of expanding the playoffs is like, oh, well, you're just going to have the same conversations of who makes the 8th and 7th spot, and you're going to have these, controversial things. The difference between the 4th ranked, 5th ranked, and 6th ranked teams right now in our current system is a hell of a lot closer to teams that can win it all than number 8, 9, and 10. If we're talking about like this number 10 team, they have a reasonable shot. They should maybe get in. That's a hell of a lot worse of a team than us currently arguing, like, should this 5th ranked team or this 4th ranked guy go in? So I don't think there's really going to be too much controversy of teams that deserve it. Like we've seen in years past, pretty much every year there's an argument of a team getting left out that shouldn't get left out.
Yeah, and I mean, you have 3 lost teams getting, that 10th spot, sometimes even the 9th rank, like 2, 3 lost,
They have no
don't
chance
need to see
of
that.
beating Alabama or Georgia or Ohio State or whomever.
No.
So I want to see it expanded because 8 teams, I think, is that sweet spot.
It is. Opinion. It definitely can't be more than 8. No. I'd be strongly against.
Because you even said when we've talked about like the top teams, I think last week we did it, like who are our top, and I think you rattled off 6. You said, these 6 teams are, it's these 6, and then everybody else is a big notch below. You're not going to see that big notch below, from the 10th. Like, who gives a fuck? That 10th team's never going to win a championship. It's just not going to happen unless some crazy miracle happens. Or like a guy, their best player, blows out his knee week 1 and comes back week 10. Like, this is just not going to happen. So they need to expand the data. I kind of like the idea. And if they can figure out a way to implement it, hopefully it doesn't take 3 SEC teams getting into the college football playoff before they realize, let's expand this. Because this is terrible for our fans to have 3 teams from the same conference. But, I don't know. It'll be interesting to kind of see how the rest of the season shapes up. Like you said, as it ramps up with these bigger games and these bigger in-conference games, particularly the matchups in the SEC, and then, some of the Big Ten as well coming. Oklahoma, Texas in the Big 12. Had some good matchups coming up.
Yeah, we do. You already mentioned Oklahoma, Texas. That's a noon game. Kind of interesting kick off the day with a big
I'm going to be playing golf. Fuck, I just remembered.
Really?
Yeah, man. Yeah. So my brother got this invitation in the mail. There's a local country club out in Warren where we all grew up, and I've never played it. And he got an invitation to doing like an open house where they're trying to, attract new members or whatever. So they have like free golf, free tennis, some barbecue action and shit like that. So he got this invitation in the mail, called me up. I'm like, dude, fuck yeah, I'm playing. I'm gonna go play that private country club. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think our tee time is 11:45. Even though it's supposed to rain, I don't give a shit. It's gonna be sweet. I'm pretty psyched. So I'm gonna miss that game, unfortunately. Nice. It's actually a good week to do it because Ohio State's off. But hey, fuck it. I'm trying to play some golf. I'll pull it up on my phone and watch between tee shots. You know what I'm saying?
There you go, man. Got to watch it somehow. No, it should be an exciting game. You got any hunch on who you think is going to win that one?
I don't know. I mean, Oklahoma's pretty fucking good. They'll probably win.
I'm going Oklahoma. Their offense is just, it's too legit. Lincoln Riley is awesome.
They look just too, like you said, their offense, they look just too well-oiled.
Yeah,
like
they're a well-oiled machine.
He's got his formula down that he just understands how to function in the college football. It's a new quarterback, no step lost, just instant success.
He's had a new starting quarterback all 3 years now. He's been the head coach.
So. And continue to dominate. Back-to-back Heisman Trophy winners. Maybe back.
It could be a third. It's crazy.
A very legitimate shot that happens. So,
guess what the over/under is for that game?
I'm gonna say Oklahoma's -4.
No, I don't. No, Texas is +11.
11. Holy fuck!
Guess what the over/under?
Oh, the over/under. Sorry.
Right now, though.
The over/under. Oh shit. The over/under. Let me guess. Probably like 93.
76, which is still it's still outrageous.
Hey,
it's still outrageous.
Oklahoma, Texas Tech from back then. That's what I had in mind.
Yeah, no shit.
Baker versus Pat Mahomes.
I mean, Sam Ellinger is good too. Like Texas is definitely gonna put up some points.
Yeah, realistically, would you say 70 something?
76.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. So, some of the other,
I might have pumped the over on that though.
You think?
Yeah, dude. Each team's dropping 40.
Dude.
Each team might drop 40, bro.
I kind of like that over as well.
But I probably won't bet it. Fuck it. It's less fun when I bet on a game that I can't watch. Cause it's like,
right.
The only reason I bet is to make it interesting for myself.
So another game that's at night on ABC is Penn State at Iowa. Penn State is ranked 10th right now. They're 5-0, and Iowa is coming off of a loss.
That'll be an interesting
Michigan. Game. It will. I kind of want to figure out more about both teams. Like Iowa just lost. They were 4-0.
Their defense is legit, but
offense
didn't really do anything against Michigan. What do we really know about Penn State? That'll be an interesting game. Penn State going on the road. If they win that game, if they win it handedly too, like they put up some points, I'll be watching out for Penn State for the rest of the season because that would make a statement for sure for them.
Correct. And I wasn't sure what to make of Penn State coming into this season. with losing McSorley and Miles Sanders. I mean, McSorley was a perfect quarterback for what they wanted to do. But I mean, they have a really athletic front seven, and they have some speed on offense at their skilled position spots. So what I really want to see is Clifford, their quarterback, under a little bit of pressure.
Yeah.
Let's see him versus a pretty stout defense like Iowa has. And
they have not
what's
faced yet. That is for sure.
No.
They're let's see, Idaho, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Maryland, and Purdue has been their season so far.
Yeah,
so obviously they're 5-0. This has been their first test, especially like I said, on the road. Their only road game to this point has been that 59-0 win at Maryland. So it's going to be a tester, especially, with the following week being that home against Michigan at 7:30. Are they going to have a little bit of look ahead? Obviously Iowa's ranked, so it's not like they're going to really sneak up on them. And everybody knows how good their defense is and how good their pass rush is. But if they start looking ahead a little bit to Michigan and they overlook the fact that Iowa's sitting right in front of them on the road at night again, it'll be interesting.
Iowa is never, no matter how good or bad Iowa is, you cannot overlook them, especially at Kinnick Stadium. Under the lights.
Don't get me started, bro.
Oh, bro. 2016, Michigan. Undefeated, 9-0, go to Kinnick and lose that game. But, yeah, I agree. I think you'll learn about both teams in that game. I don't think Penn State will overlook Iowa to Michigan. There's not much to review on Michigan. Their offense stinks. There's not much to prepare for. I don't want to keep dwelling on Michigan, but I'm going to say this. Here's one thing that pisses me off, probably more than anything, is the use and development of the elite athletes Michigan has had. So I'm looking at a couple midseason NFL draft boards, and on CBS, Nico Collins is in the tail end of the first round. And in Todd McShay's big board, Donovan Peoples-Jones is in the 20 range.
Sure.
Their stats this year, and really for their career,
two first-round wide receivers
are ugly, dude. Iowa's running back has more receptions this year than Donovan Peoples-Jones and Nico Collins combined. A fucking running back from Iowa. Amazing. So everyone else,
that's awesome.
Everyone sees that they are talented players except for Jim Harbaugh. Doesn't want to give them the ball. Don't understand it. So we'll
you got noodle-armed Shea Patterson out there fucking trying to give him the ball.
That's another problem I have against Jim Harbaugh. Year 5 and you don't have a quarterback yet.
But you can construct ways into an offense to get your best players the ball. It doesn't have to be huge plays every time. Like they'll make a good play. They'll make plays.
You're preaching to the choir, man.
Yeah.
No matter how you spin it, Jim Harbaugh in year 5, there's no excuse anymore to look this fucking bad. And I keep seeing excuses that, we're installing a new offensive coordinator, like you're going to have some bumps in the road. No, fuck that. Joey Burrow looked pedestrian last year, like just a decent college quarterback. They go out and hire a new offensive coordinator. They're fucking rolling. And Joey Burrow is in the Heisman race now. Ryan Day, there was an argument last year that, does Urban have some handcuffs on him with the offense or not? He's a new head coach. Now he's got full reins of the offense, has a brand new quarterback, hasn't even been in the program yet, and he's a baller.
Look better than ever.
So I don't want to hear that BS excuse.
Real quick before we move on from NCAA, what is it, 6 weeks through now? What's your top 4 Heisman rankings? Maybe just do top 5.
Yeah, I'm not going to go in order. I'm just going to list.
But it has to go in order.
Oh man,
it doesn't have to be
me on the spot.
Well, yeah, fuck it. It's just not like I'm making you bet any money on this.
I'm going number 1 is probably Jalen Hurts because.
Wait, are you basing this off of like if the Heisman was given out today, or who you think's going to win the Heisman by the end of the year?
Going by today.
Okay.
I'd go Jalen Hurts, probably Tua number 2. His stats are. They're outrageous.
They are. They haven't played anybody, but still, they're
right.
Absurd.
And then I'd probably go Justin Fields. Let's see. I got to throw Burrow in the mix. He's been putting up numbers. My 5 spot.
Chase Young.
Yeah. If he puts up 20 sacks this year, I'll put Chase Young in it.
He needed to have a little bit bigger of a game. He dominated without getting the stats in a lot of respects last week against MSU, but.
For number 5, I mean,
Hard for a defensive player to win Heisman. Basically impossible.
right. Trevor Lawrence isn't. He's not putting up he's not having the year to throw him in the top 5 category.
I think our top 4
maybe
is
it
pretty
is
much the same as
maybe
well.
it is Sam Ellinger at this point.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of someone else.
I mean, our top
there.
4 is definitely the same, except I think I'd rank Burrow a little bit higher. Maybe Burrow number 3, and then Fields number 2. It's just the stats of. I'd probably have to put Tua at number 1 actually as well, because his stats is just absurd. But I mean, between those 4, I think it's kind of a 4-man race for the most part. I don't know what. There's probably somebody that we're just overlooking and missing right now, but Sam Ellinger, he's put up some stats. I don't know. I'd have to really look at it. It was kind of a spot question, just popped into my head. Figured I'd ask it to see where we stand, and it'd be interesting to see us kind of go back and look.
Right. I think they're definitely all quarterbacks at this point in the year. It's not really.
No, dude, I put Jonathan Taylor there, number 5. How about that?
Oh shit!
Almost forgot.
It's got to be Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
God, I was trying to think of
He
running backs
has
or
1,000,000 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's definitely Jonathan Taylor is in there.
Yeah.
I can't believe we didn't think of him.
I just knew there was somebody we were fucking forgetting.
I was going through running backs and none were really sticking out. Like J.K. Dobbins is really good, but not really Heisman worthy.
Yeah,
at this
he
point
just.
compared
I mean,
to the others.
just the way they spread out the ball, and
exactly
the way they have mixed in a lot of Master Teague. Ohio State. I mean, J.K.'s not going to even be in the discussion, really.
No.
He has the talent to do it, and if they fed him the rock as much as Jonathan Taylor gets fed the rock, and maybe I'm just talking out of my ass because his attempts might be similar, but just watching Ohio State, they just have too much other talent. I mean, shit, fucking Taylor had like 6 touchdowns against Kent State the other day. Like,
Yes.
Hey, let's just pad the stats. Maybe get one of our guys on the national stage of the Heisman.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty.
He is a beast, though.
He's so
he
fucking
deserves
good.
it.
Oh, for sure.
So, yeah, I mean, it's like Alabama. I wanted to throw Jerry Jeudy out there, but their other receivers are so
They're
freaking
so good. They
like
spread the ball out too much.
One of their receivers against Ole Miss had 5 touchdowns in that game.
That's wild.
I think it was Jalen Waddle. I can't
Alabama's
remember now, but their receivers are awesome to watch. So
yeah, reflecting is funny. Like I mentioned, there's only so much you can say about Ohio State dominating and Chase Young being a fucking beast and et cetera, et cetera. And then same thing with you in Michigan, but you still went a little bit of rant there, which
it's hard.
Very
not
well.
to.
Yeah, exactly. It's very well warranted for Michigan. But it's funny
frustrating being a Michigan fan,
Same.
and I get to watch the fucking Browns on Sunday and Mondays.
I can't wait to get into that one.
Literally identical to Michigan. Like it's like I'm watching the same team on both days on the weekend. So other games coming up, Notre Dame, USC. Notre Dame is going to handle their shit.
Hey, USC just beat Washington. Hey.
Stanford just beat Washington.
Correct. Yeah, my bad. USC.
It was USC that beat Utah.
Right.
Utah had a bye. I'm still feeling comfortable with my Utah pick winning that conference. But Alabama plays.
I thought you had Washington.
No.
Oh,
they were in the championship with
gotcha.
Utah winning.
Okay, yeah. Oregon's going to the ship. They winning that bitch.
But
unless I said something else on week 1's podcast, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you said it was one of your fuck it picks.
Yeah,
Oregon.
man. Oregon.
But the other game at 3:30 is Alabama A&M. Another 3:30 game is Wisconsin, Michigan State. So Michigan State, kind of tough slate there.
No, they're fucked.
Ohio State, turn around and go play Wisconsin.
Yeah, they're fucked.
Ouch. So, yeah, be an interesting
Which
week
is unfortunate.
7.
You talk about the rankings. Like Michigan State is going to have 4 losses at the end of the season, and it's like not their fault. They just aren't quite as good, but it doesn't look like a good win. Michigan State's still a solid team. Their defense is legit.
Yeah, no, it's a solid win.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see if anybody talks about it being a solid win, and these teams are in the conversation potentially for the playoff spot, if it's even a conversation. I mean, if Ohio State wins out or Wisconsin wins out, it's pretty easy, but we'll see, man. We'll see.
So, moving on to the NFL, we already mentioned that Thursday night matchup.
Nice games this past week in the NFL.
There were, man. So, do you get a chance to watch that Thursday game at all? It's a tight game, 30-29.
Yeah, I watched a chunk of it for sure. Bro, Russ Wilson is the truth, bro.
He's so good. Lockett is
People
also
forget
very
how fucking
underrated.
good Russ Wilson is. Yeah, man. I mean, the Seahawks are, like I said, people are sleeping on the Seahawks. I don't understand why, and I think I have a little bit too. I mean, they lose a lot of talent and names, I guess, but they just come out with the right names, like Russ Wilson. When you got a guy like that, you're gonna win some games
for sure.
They're legit. There was some good upsets though too, throughout the league last week.
Yeah, we had freaking Oakland over Chicago. I mean, I don't know if you want to view that as a huge upset. Oakland kind of
to me
put a little bit more together this year than I thought they were going to.
Right. They're sneakishly relevant.
Yeah,
which I did not think was going to be the case.
Yeah, it's kind of bizarre that they're 3-2.
You know, they get rid of Khalil Mack, and then the whole debacle with Antonio Brown.
It was a mess.
And all the conversation about Derek Carr being a bum, and Gruden coming in with his giant salary and just not being attuned to the current status of the NFL and how things operate. Bro, they're sneakishly fucking legit. Mayock fucking coming from a booth on ESPN or NFL Network or wherever the fuck he was employed to a GM of an NFL team.
Right.
I felt like they were getting no respect, and whether or not it's warranted yet, I guess we'll kind of find out, but they got my attention for sure.
They do. I mean, they added Tyrell Williams. Darren Waller is appearing to be pretty damn good tight end, and Josh Jacobs, rookie running back out of Alabama, looks pretty talented. So, yeah, they're definitely an interesting team. And they're another team that can't be overlooked when you play them. So, and with the Bears, I thought their defense would just be so good.
Right. I mean,
even with offensive struggles,
their offense sucks, bro. Like I don't even know what else to say. Like, they suck. I mean, obviously they don't have a quarterback, and their starting quarterback. It doesn't happen very often where your starting quarterback goes down and your offense is actually better with the backup in. Because Mitch Trubisky is a bum, dude. He's a bum. And it's funny that there was conversation the Browns were almost going to get him, and I was going to be furious. Coming from Mentor, everybody's sucking his cock.
I would have been so pissed.
Dodged a bullet there.
Yes.
But, yeah, I mean, they're just not very – they can't run the rock. They have fucking Chase Daniel as their quarterback. It's hard to do anything offensively when those two things are true. And – maybe the Bears just aren't as good as everybody thinks, and maybe that's why the Raiders, got the win. But hey, I don't know. I'm all the way out on the Bears.
Yeah, I think I am too. I mean, especially in that division, like the Lions don't look like they're a pushover. Right. You got the Vikings who have a bunch of talent. Kirk Cousins doesn't wow you, but at the same time, you cannot overlook the Vikings. They're a pretty well built roster, and then
he balled out last week too, man.
Yeah, and then the Packers obviously look like they are the real deal this year.
Oh, for sure.
So another
we saw Thursday night. The first thing that came out of Aaron Rodgers' mouth after that win is, "We got a defense," and they fucking got a defense.
They do. Mike Pettin has it going on. They upgraded the secondary,
added all that talent. Their defense is no joke, and when you have Aaron Rodgers on the other side of the ball, they're going to be a force, bro. They're going to be a force for sure.
For sure. They can run the ball. Aaron Jones went off against the boys. They took care of business on the road. Back to upsets. Almost had an upset with the Steelers over Baltimore, bro.
Yeah.
God damn it.
The good old referees kind of screwed the pooch on that one. I was actually watching that game. Dude, the Ravens they're not good.
They're not
good. The Ravens aren't good.
They're not good.
And we had, talked in depth a couple weeks ago on our Browns episode about me basically having zero confidence that the Ravens would do anything but get slapped. That's exactly what happened. The Ravens aren't good. Lamar Jackson is the most overhyped quarterback that we've seen in quite some time. Those people on the national and local broadcasts even talking about Lamar Jackson in the MVP conversation, which is hilarious to me. After doing what he did against the two worst defenses or teams, more or less.
If you can't light up the Miami Dolphins, get the fuck out. And I'll say that about Baker if he has a shitty game against the Dolphins.
When you watch Lamar Jackson, he has all these yards. Half of these throws, I could fucking hit a dude. If I had the arm strength to throw up 40 yards downfield, I can hit the wide open guy, of course. But he's a bum. He's just not a quarterback. He just can't throw. Like I think I said early on, last time I checked, your quarterback needs to be able to throw the ball in the NFL. They can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't buy Baltimore at all.
The point I'm making, the whole conversation about almost upset, I don't know that it's really that much
Dude,
of an
Pittsburgh
upset
is
because
bad.
Pittsburgh's bad, and I don't think the Ravens are very good. I still think the AFC North is the Browns' division if they kind of get their shit in line. Obviously they got embarrassed last Monday night against the 49ers. We'll get into that obviously on the second breakdown show. But the 49ers are legit too. I think people were sleeping on them for sure. I know I was, definitely. And I know you were, because we had that conversation about how you were super confident. And, I wasn't confident only because I didn't know a lot about the 49ers. Not that I thought they were bad, but I just didn't know anything about them. They're legit. That defense is legitimate.
Yeah, the defensive front, definitely legit. I guess my confidence going into that game was similar to Baltimore. Looking at their schedule, they didn't really play any good teams, and I thought with the Browns, we had at least faced adversity, faced some good defensive fronts, like, somewhat comparable, like the Rams, to where we had seen that before. Then watching them against Baltimore, although we both already had a hunch Baltimore might not be that good, they had it going on offense. You thought like we were just waiting for that one game where they click and it was going to be smooth sailing after that. Well, we were fucking wrong, and that is not the case right now. And it's not like Garoppolo can take over games. They ran the ball way too effectively early on, and it just set their offense up for success the rest of the game.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at the AFC North, for instance, everybody kind of talked preseason about who's going to win the division. Is it going to be the Browns or the Steelers? Belch. Is it going to be the Browns or the Steelers? And not a lot of people were talking about the Ravens really being in the conversation all that much. And then they beat two teams they should obviously beat, and all of a sudden everybody thinks that they're, the team to beat in the division still. The Steelers, with all their injuries and just how everything shaped out, even if Big Ben was still there, I don't think they're very good. The Ravens, much like preseason, I don't think because they got a couple wins against some slapdicks, all of a sudden they're, the best team in the division. Their schedule is cake to start the year. Not that it really gets too formidable later, but I just don't think they're going to be a 9-10 win team. So the Browns, I think, are still in the driver's seat for the division. But how much do you think, and I think this kind of comes down to leadership, how much do you think momentum can carry a team through a season? Because the Browns have a super difficult schedule, and obviously we've seen them lose some games. The opposite is true for the Ravens. Their easy schedule comes super early. Like I said, getting the Cardinals, Dolphins, and Bengals twice in the first. And at Steelers also at this point, now that they suck, in the first, 6 weeks. How much do you think momentum can really impact a season-long game to game, or do you think it's not really that important in the NFL?
Yeah, I don't know. The word momentum in sports gets me sometimes. Like, you're going to have to respond to adversity at any given point in the season, whether it happens right at the start of the year, middle of the year, closing out the year, and you're going to need those leaders in the locker room and on the coaching staff to get things turned around. So if you start the season on a terrible note, they can all lay over and straight up give up and not give a shit about the season anymore, or they can choose to respond and keep battling. And that's kind of where the Browns are at right now.
Yeah.
Things have not gone smoothly. That's just a fact. And they're young. They're a young team. They've got a young rookie head coach, obviously. So I'll be curious to see how they respond here, because they've got 2 tough games and then an easy slate. So even if they lose these next 2 tough games, like, they're not out of it if they take care of business versus
Most definitely,
the worst teams. So
yeah, I tweeted out this earlier. I responded to a dude who had a tweet who I saw, and I forget exactly what his tweet was, but I know my response was something to the effect of, we're going to see what kind of leadership we have on this team over the next several weeks.
For sure.
They're probably going to lose to the Patriots. There's a decent chance they lose at home to the Seahawks, even though I think the spread's actually only like 1.5 or something like that. Should be a tight game. It's a winnable game for the Browns, but there's a realistic chance that they start the season 2-5. So we're going to really see what kind of leadership we have on this young team. Is Baker going to be able to lead the team? Is Freddie Kitchens, a rookie head coach, going to be able to lead the team to stay focused? Because that momentum really in the NFL shouldn't really be a factor. But if they stay focused and kind of handle their business and kind of get their shit right as they progress through the season, their schedule is pie.
If they go 2-5,
They realistically could win 7 games.
I was going to say, you go 7-2 in that back end. Now you're looking at 9-7. That's exactly what I picked at the start of the year for Cleveland's record, and I mean that should get you into the playoffs in the AFC at 9-7.
Yeah.
Possibly even win the division.
And I do think some of the momentum, we talk about the word momentum, but I think some of the confidence in the momentum does play a factor and does carry over, especially for this team and how it's constructed and with the youth and, getting things figured out as we go along. I think that will play into a part of, what the Browns are able to do if they're able to go on the run. But don't want to get too tied up with the Browns because we're going to get into that in our Browns breakdown episode. And don't want to get too tied up with the AFC North. But recapping other games from last week, I think we saw, when you mentioned upsets, Colts-Chiefs. Are the Colts the truth? Or are they, just getting wins here early that, aren't going to transpire into any long-term longevity success? What do you think?
No, I think the Colts are a really good team. I mean, Brissett is a quality quarterback in the league. I mean, he's nothing crazy. But at the same time, that roster is finally well constructed. Their offensive line is legit. They have a running back in Marlon Mack who is pretty talented. Obviously, they still have T.Y. Eric Ebron all of a sudden learned how to catch a football and make plays after he left Detroit. Really bizarre how he responded last year after leaving Detroit. But
Ebron, I don't know.
He still has problems, but all of a sudden he was putting up numbers, dude.
Yeah, he does occasionally.
So it kind of sucks. We, as a fan, not faulting Luck's decision, but as a fan, it sucks because you saw how good Andrew Luck was and his potential to be great. And the Colts finally got their shit together and built a roster that's pretty damn good. And we don't get to see Andrew Luck play with that team. But no, it's the AFC South. I mean, I definitely think the Colts are still legit.
Good. People are underestimating the fact that he is a good fucking quarterback. He's just not a fill-in guy, in my opinion. I think he's good enough to do damage.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's still only a fill-in guy.
A Super Bowl contending team for sure, especially with the offensive line, like you mentioned, especially with them being able to establish the run with Mack, and Quentin Nelson instantly steps in and becomes one of the best offensive linemen in the league. And their defense is solid. I mean, like I said, they held the Chiefs to 13 points last week. They scored 3 points in the second half. The Chiefs did against that defense. We're talking about one of the best offenses that we've seen in quite some time, if not ever. I mean, obviously they still have some guys coming back from injury. Damian Williams, their starting running back, just played his first game last week. Tyreek Hill hasn't even stepped on the field yet, so they're still going to continue to improve even as the season goes along. But Pat Mahomes is legit. Obviously, their whole offense is the truth, and they held them to 13 points. Mm-hmm. So the Colts,
it's pretty damn good.
The Colts are fucking good, man. I'm just gonna go and say they're gonna win that division.
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking they're winning the division.
Even
now,
though
Super Bowl contender, I don't know if I'm going that far just yet, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about our picks, and I think I mentioned the Colts being up in that conversation, and then Andrew Luck retires, and then, I mean, swapping Andrew Luck for Jacoby, I don't think is as big of a downgrade as it really seems. Initial reaction, I think that gap is not as significant. Obviously, Andrew Luck is amazing and one of the best quarterbacks we've seen who unfortunately ends his career due to injury because they didn't want to build an offensive line around him. I'm not saying Jacoby Brissett is Andrew Luck, but the gap of their decline in offense and team overall is not going to drop that significantly just because Jacoby Brissett fits in there, because I think Jacoby Brissett is good enough to be a starting quarterback on a team that could go to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, he's definitely a starting quarterback in the NFL, and he's pretty good. So I agree. There's not this huge fallout that you would think, oh, Andrew Luck is retired, or like if Patrick Mahomes went down for the Chiefs, there's like fucked. A huge. They're exactly. Screwed. It's nothing like that. So, the Colts are a team to be reckoned with. I definitely think,
and that's the thing. Like how they built that team is around their offensive line, basically at this point, at least offensively. And when you build a team around the offensive line and being able to establish a run in any given Sunday, you have a chance to win with a competent QB.
For sure.
Like you mentioned Pat Mahomes. If he goes down, the Chiefs are fucked. Their entire offense is Pat Mahomes.
Yeah, it's all him.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
Like if Jacoby Brissett were still on the Patriots and Tom Brady goes down, the Patriots are still a Super Bowl contending team.
Oh, no.
You know what I mean?
Them for sure. Absolutely. But yeah,
so,
I think the Colts are really good.
My point is being Jacoby is a Super Bowl. He could easily go to the Super Bowl with many teams. He's that good. People are sleeping on him a little bit. So yeah, there was some good games last week. The Texans put up 50 or something like that.
Yeah, Deshaun Watson was awesome.
Falcons stink, bro. Falcons stink. Kind of said that for several weeks now.
So the first podcast,
Dan Quinn blows.
I kind of felt put on the spot by your question of which team isn't getting talked about that might win more games than what they're getting credited for. And my pick was Atlanta because they have too much talent to be this shitty. I mean, they have some big names.
Telling you they stink there.
I watched that game. Just saw one play.
Dude, Matt Ryan is a bomb
on defense, and on 3rd and long, they were in cover 0 with a double team or cover 1 with a double team on D-Hop. Will Fuller was 1-on-1 down the sideline and just totally torches the cornerback 1-on-1. Oh, they had 3 down linemen. They only brought 3 on 3rd and long and were in man with double coverage on D-Hop. What do you think happened? Deshaun Watson to Will Fuller to the house call. Just stuff like that blows my mind.
He balled out. Dude, the Falcons stink. I mean, like I said, right down you, Matt Ryan, he'll probably still put up stats and all this, but they're not going to win.
It's not because of Matt Ryan. Their coaches suck. Well, they stink.
I don't disagree, but Matt Ryan is overrated. He's one of the more overrated QBs. Everybody thinks he's, one of these top 5 guys. I think he has an MVP or no?
Yeah, he did win an MVP.
He's nowhere near MVP level at this point. They stink. And, yeah.
New Orleans getting it done again with Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah.
God damn, I love that team.
Their defense is no joke, man. Their defense is no joke. And, they just continue to just find ways to win. Not that, Tampa Bay is anything, all that special, but.
Yeah, but Mike Evans had 0 receptions, bro. That's insane.
Marshawn Lattimore, man, he was basically 1-on-1 against him for the majority of the plays offensively for Tampa Bay, and he shut him the fuck down. Their defense,
he's legit.
Yeah,
their D is legit.
They're Cam Jordan leading that pass rush. He is one of the more underrated pass rushers and defensive players. I mean, obviously he gets some credit and he gets some talk about him, but all the talk about, rightfully so, about some of the other guys that we've mentioned in the past, but he's up there.
No,
he's one of those better guys, and I mean their defense.
It doesn't. I agree. You don't.
Field.
He doesn't get brought up with like the elite pass rusher. Like people know he's elite.
Mack,
he just
Myles
doesn't
Garrett,
get talked about.
Both the Bosas,
most of the time.
You have these guys that everybody kind of rattles off, or who are the best. Von Miller, all these best D linemen who can rush the passer, and Cam Jordan should be in that conversation because he is good as fuck. And Teddy Bridgewater, man, steady Eddie, man, 4 tutties, 300 yards. Like we said a couple weeks ago,
really good in that
there's
game.
a reason why he's the highest paid backup in the league, and it's because in a situation like this, the Saints recognized he is easily good enough to be a starter in the league elsewhere. But if something happens and our 40-year-old quarterback, or however old Drew Brees is, gets injured or something happens, we have a talented enough team to get wins, and we need a guy who can step in. So let's make Teddy Bridgewater the guy who can be that guy.
For
It's
sure.
going to cost him, and it's paying the fuck off at this point.
Yeah, it definitely is.
He's
So
good.
they're
He's
doing
fucking
more
good,
than
bro.
weathering the storm, dude.
Yeah,
They're sitting
he's
at
fucking
4-1.
good. Mike Thomas is still the best receiver in the league, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think
So-
he's the best receiver. They're loaded, man. Both
They
sides
are.
of the ball.
Well, another question, we talked about Heisman and our early predictions for that kind of stuff. Let's do a question that came to the top of my head. Power rankings real quick through, 6 weeks? 5 weeks. 5 weeks through the NFL. Who are your power rankings? Let's do top 10.
Top 10?
Top 10 power ranking NFL teams right now on the spot.
So
What says you go?
probably going to have to go with Packers number 1 right now. I think they're, with that defense and Aaron Rodgers and that offense humming, they look like the team to beat, in my opinion.
Fair.
Then I'm going Patriots number 2 because they're undefeated and they're the Patriots, never going away, always the Super Bowl contenders. I got to go Saints 3, even without Drew Brees. Dude, they are a loaded roster.
Interesting.
And Drew Brees is coming back.
Right.
Probably after that, I know they just lost, but I'm going the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes and that offense is too legit. Like, they're going to win a lot
And they
of
got
games.
weapons coming back, like
Yep.
we mentioned earlier.
For sure. Then I'm going Seattle. Russell Wilson is the real deal. They usually have a tough defense. Tyler Lockett, really underappreciated receiver. Then I'm going the Rams. Colts probably. Then like Houston. 49ers might be deserving of a little bit higher, but I'll go the Niners next. And then Dallas still has a lot of firepower. I think teams might have figured out Kellen Moore's style here a little bit, which can obviously happen, but it's still early. They look pretty good, so I'll throw them at number 10.
Yeah, okay. That's fair assessment. As I go through mine, I mean, a lot of our top 10, and, now that I kind of think about it, our entire top 10 might be exactly the same teams. But I think I'm going to go Pats number 1 just because it's the Pats, and it's hard to really argue them being the best team coming off the Super Bowl. They haven't lost a game. Still got that old man geezer Tom Brady who's just fucking slinging the rock like whatever, like nothing. I mean, even though his stats are a little bit diminished, and that is something I want to get into, just how much more important like a run game in today's NFL we've seen can define who can define a winning team and be a good method for winning a Super Bowl, which we haven't seen in the past. It was in the past, if you don't have a dominant quarterback, you're not going to win. But I think that's definitely a conversation for another day because that is something we want to get into in more depth than just kind of giving our quick thoughts. But good old Pats. Number 2, Packers. You had them number 1. Number 3, I'm going to go 49ers. I think they're a legitimate team. Their defense is for real. We saw that Monday night against the Browns. Whether or not the Browns are actually all that good, it's kind of, if you take them out of the equation, they haven't really played anybody. And if you fill the Browns in as a team that's not very good, they haven't played anybody still. So it's kind of tricky, but I still think they're actually what I saw. Their defensive front is for real, and their offensive weapons are good enough to put up mad points on anybody in the league. Jimmy Garoppolo, I didn't really have a lot of faith in him, but I do now. 4, I got the Chiefs with kind of the same points you said. Just tempted to drop them a little bit because their defense isn't very good, but Pat Mahomes is too good to drop them too low. Number 5, I had the Saints. For similar points, you had Seahawks after that, Colts, then Cowboys for me, Texans and Rams rounding out the bottom there. I think that's 10. But if not, fuck it. Close enough. But I think that's 10. And rounding out, the Rams, obviously Super Bowl team, but very well could have lost to the Browns. Just got slapped by the Buccaneers. They got a little bit more to prove that they actually have some long, sustainable success. But that's our power rankings, I think. And I don't really know there's too much more to talk about this week on Calling the Field Stands. What says you, Jeffrey? Any other closing statements you'd like to make or anything like that?
Yeah, I'd like for one weekend, I'd like to wake up on Saturday, actually have fun and enjoy Michigan, and then turn around Sunday and actually watch the Browns and not be disappointed. But That's a pipe dream.
Yeah, well, probably. Anyways, I think that's it for Calling the Field Stands episode, whatever this is. Thanks for tuning in. Jeffrey, it's been a great pleasure.
As always.
Peace.